Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I'm so excited today because we're going to be talking to someone. I was talking to him before the program. I don't think I've ever heard of another company that provides the services that he provides. Very interesting, very much needed. So this is going to be a great discussion. So please join me in welcoming Sondre Rasch to our program today. Welcome, Sondre. How are you?
Thank you very much. It's so good to be here, Deb, and great to see you today.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this.
All
So
right.
Sondre is the co-founder and CEO of SafetyWing, an all-remote company on a mission to build a global social safety net for digital nomads and remote workers. Sondre studied economics and computer science, then worked as a social policy advisor for the government of Norway. Dissatisfied with the slow pace of change, happens in government, right? He founded a platform for freelance designers called SuperSide. Through this work, he discovered the lack of social safety net for people working on the internet. This inspired the creation of SafetyWing, which so far has raised $50 million in venture capital funding and whose globally distributed team consists of 150 people from more than 60 countries around the world. So again, Sondre, welcome.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks for the introduction.
My first question is always, how is it that you decided that this is your passion in life? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so, when I was 13, 14, I tinkered with starting web companies.
Wow.
I was playing a game with some friends where you played online. You had your little planet, and you played it through the browser. But the point was that people played it from all over the world, and they had to cooperate. And so you created these alliances, and through that, I learned web kind of development, hosting, and other things. And I tried to set up like a hosting service for other people. So I guess I was always like entrepreneurial with it, I think. And yeah, that was where I also learned a lot of the things that I later applied, building a remote company. Now, so many of those things, like Slack, for example, comes from that time. It's called IRC. Slack is like IRC for business, and many of the other things. So two things: one, early entrepreneurial; two, an early taste for like working remotely on the internet with people from all over the world. And so that was very fortunate, I think, in my story. That's the first time I realized that, but that was very fortunate in my story. Yeah, so teenage years went by, did some other things, and got interested in economics and policy for a little bit, studied that. Knew sort of I wanted to go back to startup entrepreneurship. But after out of studies, I worked as a policy advisor in the government of Norway, as you mentioned. And I enjoyed it, but I also noticed there was particularly the slow pace of change in adapting to the internet that I got frustrated with. Because to me, it seemed like, partly because I was living in this world early, that this is already happening. This is not speculation. But it wasn't to other people. That seemed like possibilities. The effect that the internet would have on things like the labor market. So what kind of jobs can people have? So now, for example, a person in Norway can get a freelance job anywhere, right? For a company on the internet, and a remote job. And the thing is, that changes the labor market. changes how they work and what
Right.
kind of jobs they can have, which is some of the key questions that policy labor market is concerned with. And yet it was kind of going fully in the blind spot. I also thought it to be a very good thing. I like both online freelancing and remote work in general. Online freelancing because it allowed people who didn't have, that great circumstances to find a way to work. Like if you lived in a very rural area, or you had like, I don't know, many children to watch, or you're disabled, or like something.
Right.
So you got a lot of full schedule. Freelancing is great because it provides that freedom. Okay, so anyway, I was frustrated with that, so I started this freelancer platform, and with kind of that in mind, with a friend who was also like a bit sort of society interested. And at the time, I also really lived my thesis. So I kind of like I planned that I would quit my job at some date and start to try to get freelance gigs writing in the evenings. And I wanted to become a digital nomad, which is this logic that if you have an online income, you're actually free to live anywhere in the world. So I wanted to move abroad to lengthen my kind of personal runway. So if you imagine runway is like the money you have divided by how much you spend each month. I thought if I spend less, if I had, like, I didn't have that much. I think I had like 15K in savings or something. So it's like staying in Oslo, that's like 3 months. But if I were to like move to, even as close as Berlin at the time, that went from 3 months to 15 and possibly even more.
Wow.
30. Yeah, it was really cheap at the time. It's got more expensive now, but it was really cheap back then, 10 years ago. So that was the plan, and I did, and that sort of worked. And we started this company and got into Y Combinator. That was venture funded. It's doing well today. It's like 700 people working there. And that was when I discovered this kind of secondary problem. So it's a problem on top of this internet labor market thing, which is that the freelancers who were working at our platform said that they had so variable income and they could access a social safety net and sort of understood what was going on, which is that this labor market, these people were global. The internet is global, but social safety net systems, they're not. They're still national. That's why it doesn't work. So this was the impetus to create this SafetyWing, which we went out to create, was to build global social safety net. And then we sort of added on for the first country on the internet, which was this more came from through reasoning, like more like, hey, if we make a global social safety net, and that's mostly done by countries today, it's not going to be. So we kind of threw that in there. But yeah, and then we've been working on that now for 6 years, since 2018. It's taking a long time, really, just to get to the first product in some sense. Like we launched the first product right away, but I mean the vision, the point. We launched in 2018, Nomad insurance for nomads, which is kind of just because we're thinking like we're going to make global social safety net. So imagine something like what a country like, are you in the US? Sorry.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so social security, imagine that, but like for anyone in the world on the internet. It works anywhere. Okay, so health, like Medicare, like income unemployment, retirement, just everything, all of that. That's the idea. Okay, that you can have that as a membership, and it works anywhere in the world. And we realized, that's hard to do. So we have to start somewhere. Where we're going to start, because I know I've seen companies like this, like they go bankrupt before they get to market.
Right.
So I thought, how can I avoid that? Well, I have to kind of find some little sliver.
Right. You got to pick your niche.
Yeah. A little kind of foot in the door. And that became Nomad Insurance, because we thought, what's global today? Travel insurance, travel medical, that's already global. So couldn't we make something like a travel insurance, and we tweak it a little, and it becomes like a global health insurance?
Right.
And it turns out kind of, yes, that became Nomad Insurance. And then after that came remote health insurance for remote teams, and then Nomad Health, the kind of regular health insurance for nomads. And it's only now that we're working on this, like after all these years, because it took us so long time to get to licenses and strength and
Right.
just health on its own is like it's a long time to get good at. But now we are at that point where we're actually working on the vision product. So I'm very excited to see
I
see
love
that.
it. I love it. And obviously we've talked a lot about, remote working, nomad, things like that since COVID, because but this is something that's been going on forever. I mean, people worked remotely, even if they were, horse and buggy, they, traveled from place to place. Right. Um, and I remember years ago, I talked to a gentleman on the podcast who was a remote worker. He had his own company. Pretty much if he had internet, he could work, and so he was doing it because he had small children and he wanted to have them have these experiences. Now, he also knew at that point that at some time he would need to kind of put some roots down a little bit and, so that the kids could do school and things like that. But it's, it is something that people have done for so many years, but obviously COVID did make us think a lot more about it. And I think there were a lot of people who went, I don't need my corporate job. I want to be a freelancer. I want to be a consultant. I want to launch my own small business. But, because a lot of the reasons why people work in corporations are the benefits, the insurance, the steady income. They might not like what they're doing, but they know that they're getting a paycheck every Friday. Their health needs are covered, things like that. And so, like I said, this is why this intrigues me so much that you now offer this for these individuals who, are off on their own.
No, absolutely. That's a big part of it is that the internet has made the kind of opportunities, like you said, to become a freelancer or start an internet small business, internet startup website project, very available to a lot more people. I think a lot more people than realize. I've seen so many times people who don't think that it's possible for them, and I'm like, the internet actually has a very broad, big, deep labor market, and like very likely, almost whatever is like a marketable skill. Like English, you're actually pretty good.
Right.
You're already on your way. So, but that is not that equalization of opportunity is not in the social safety nets. That's built into these structures of how jobs used to be, which is just typically associated with a local. It's like this in the US, but it's a version of this anywhere in the world, which is that the way these things are set up is that when you have that regular paycheck, by the way, in most other countries, it's not every week. It's like every month you get the paycheck.
So you have to budget better.
Budget better, exactly. I think I had 3 weeks. So you essentially, it's set up so that when you have that, then some money is taken out to pay for the services or whatever. And if you don't, if you're a small business owner or freelance, even locally, like even in the US, you don't get all the insurances.
No. In fact, that's why so many people go back into corporate America. Because they need the insurance. It might have been great when you were young and single, but then you get married and you got kids, and and they need insurance. And so I think that is probably one of the biggest reasons that people just, they might absolutely love what they're doing and they might keep it as a side gig, but they have to have those benefits. But to me, I love this concept. It's funny. My husband actually is retiring at the end of August. And so, I will retire the day I die. I have no intention of retiring. I love what I do. But, the thought now that we could just travel and I could work from wherever is so incredibly appealing. Outside the US, all sorts of different places. And, and we still want to work, right? We don't want to just play and have fun. That would be great. But we also get fulfillment from working. And, and especially if it's our own company, whether, we're an entrepreneur, freelancer, consultant, whatever. But, again, I love this concept that people can now have this freedom to be able to do more of what they want to do anywhere in the world.
Yeah. No, I think it's fantastic. The digital nomad possibility is one of the absolute great things
Right.
about this current age. I mean, I'm doing it right now, but just the freedom of being able to go somewhere and just stay there and work from there while getting kind of like, I mean, you get the full benefit of the travel in the sense of seeing
Right.
place. You don't have like the all day free every day, but you have a lot, like you still get, I would say, 70% of the benefit of traveling without spending your like whatever 2 weeks of holiday, but you can do like all year. I mean,
Right,
it's
right. Your
amazing.
2 weeks holiday might be to go back to the States, right?
Right, exactly, because you have obligations during those days.
Right.
So no, so I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I'm so thrilled about it. I discovered it pretty early, but it is available to a lot of people, and it sounds like you're, and your husband are discovering that, and I'm so glad more and more people are discovering it because it is fully available, and
Right.
and I think for a lot of people, traveling a bit is good for them, especially if they've traveled little, which is true for all young people, right? I mean, it's really great to see the world, to kind of get out of
Right.
your bubble. And it's different than what you can see online, because online, it has its own
It's
culture,
filtered.
filtered. So, but when you go places, you see them for real.
Right.
And that does broaden your understanding of how things work. And
Right.
no, it's not broaden, it transforms your understanding of how things
Yes.
work.
Yes.
And you're better for it.
Right. Yeah. And I remember, like when we've traveled abroad, started it fairly recently, went to Scotland and Ireland, and then another trip went to Italy. And we deliberately went out of the major metropolitan areas. Like you fly into Rome, you have to fly into Rome. You're pretty much kind of stuck when you're here in the States having to fly into Rome. But we were in Rome less than 2 days, and we were off in the Italian countryside for 10 days. And just like here in the United States, rural versus urban is very different. And I love being able to see kind of just how people live their normal everyday lives. And that was what was so fun about being able to go on those excursions. Now, yeah, we wanted to see the big stuff in the big cities. We did, the Vatican, and you can't go to Rome and not go to the Vatican, right? And of course other things. But it really was one of those things where, yeah, you really, it just expanded your horizons, everything, to be able to travel. And it would be even better if you had, kids that you were taking and showing them this when they're at an age where they can actually understand it. Taking a 3-year-old, that's fun. They're not going to remember, right? You take a 13-year-old and they might think, wow, I want to do this with my life, which is, it is something that maybe they never would have thought of if they had just stayed in their home country. So, and it's funny because businesses are catering more and more to this. I had a person a young lady on my program several years ago where her business is exploring foreign communities, and she I don't remember what her nationality is, but she's here in the US now, but and looking for places where expats can go and live, whether they're US based or whatever. So going and exploring the communities to find out, okay, do they have good internet? If if these people have children, is there good schooling? What, and so she's kind of a matchmaker, excuse me, for these people, who want to work abroad, but they need to do it safely, and they need to know that what they need for their basics are there, and obviously in this case they absolutely positively have to have internet, but the thing that I loved about it was that used to be kind of the thing for the wealthy to do.
Right.
Now anybody can do it. You just have to do a bit of planning.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It was for the wealthy or like exceedingly reckless. My parents were a little bit in that kind of former like they took us on some early trips, despite being, completely normal. And they had a very nice honeymoon where they kind of like sold everything and traveled from the bottom of South America to the top of North America.
Wow.
Like a 6-month period.
Oh, what a delight.
That's a delight. 42 years ago, they just had their 42nd anniversary. But anyway, they took us on some Interrail trips growing up. So Interrail is this European concept that I love. So there's a lot of rail in Europe.
Right.
So you can buy a ticket.
Yeah, and go anywhere.
And go anywhere. And as long as you don't go on those like high-speed trains, you could just jump on any train. Like you don't have to, you can just jump on a train. So we would go to like the station and like decide where to go. And I've done that now also as like young adult multiple times. It's a great way to travel. But yeah, we were able to do that, but you kind of had to be quite reckless to do that. Both of those things.
Adventurous.
Adventurous. But now, yeah, this is so fully available, and it's sort of digital nomad family life. It's still being developed, but in the sort of like low risk way, right? Which is just renting an apartment. Like instead of going 2 weeks, right? You rent an apartment for 3 months.
Right.
And anyone can do that. Anyone who has a remote job or online income or freelance, non-location dependent income can do that. And they can bring their kids. And gosh, that's fabulous. Just I have a 9-month-old son now, definitely going to do that. I look forward to it. I'm so thrilled about it. This is going to make, hopefully, a lot of magical upbringings.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, and just like you said, being able to show them all the different cultures and traditions, I mean, all of that, it's just going to be incredible.
Yeah.
And it's funny because here in the States, we've started, like I said, we've always kind of been doing this, but more and more people are doing it. I have cousins who are in their 80s, and they have not had a home for 5 or 6 years now. They have a trailer, they pull it with their pickup, and they go from place to place. And they're not working. They have completely retired, but they are very much nomadic. And I know one of the things, because and I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. And typically they stay somewhere for at least a week, because it takes a while to get everything set up, and you don't want to just move stuff willy-nilly. But and it's been interesting to talk to them, because like one of the questions was, y'all are in your 80s, healthcare is a concern. Well, they are very fortunate that their daughter is a nurse practitioner. And so they can pick up the phone, they can Zoom, they can do whatever, and she can kind of help take care of that. But the hardest thing for them was that they needed a physical address for mail. And not all that much, but IRS here in the States needs to be able to reach you, Social Security, I mean, things like that. And so they were fortunate that they had a child, but shoot, you rent a UBS box and you've got that. So again, that's pretty simple to do. I also have another friend who her brother researches Airbnb houses. And he will contact somebody and he will say, I want to stay there for 2 or 3 months, exactly what you were saying. And he said, I'll pay your mortgage so a decreased rate usually from what they would be getting if they charge the whole thing. But he said, you don't have to clean, you don't have to do anything. And they're using it as a way to just do exactly what you said, but just here in the United States. And I think it's so interesting to see that all of this is becoming more and more common. I think people are, they want to, if they're an employee, they want to have those options also, to be able to say, you know what, I don't want to come into that office 5 days a week, and I want to be able to travel. And and I think especially because of COVID, I mean, a lot of people went remote and have stayed at least partially remote. And and they're not in their home, which was 5 miles from the office. They're 5,000 miles away.
Exactly. No, exactly. I mean, those two phenomena, they're two of the like most important social phenomena we're living through. I mean, so first to the travel part, you're absolutely right. I mean, the health thing is one of those hard things to figure out, especially if you have kids and you can kind of go a bit fast and loose with that. Or you're in your 80s, you're nomadic.
those two extremes, right? The healthy 40-year-old.
Right, maybe. But so yeah, no, I mean that's what we're trying to do, right? I mean, partly for ourselves, right? I mean, we started the company, it's fully remote, obviously, hired many people who work here for our nomads. Our product is to solve a problem that we have. I mean, it says so on the front, just like by nomads for nomads. We're trying to solve our own problem, which is, exactly that you want this sort of health in particular, also some of the other things, but health in particular to work well wherever you are. And if it can, that's a big barrier removed, because a lot of people would like to. I mean, if you think back, I think it's good to have a base. It's good to have somewhere you're from and where you have some roots. It's not want to give up that, but I think there is this point about like the agricultural revolution. Isn't that recent? Like, it's pretty recent. Like, it's like,
right.
I don't know, 6, 8, 12,000 years ago or something. The first agriculture phenomenon. So before that, human beings lived in these like nomadic.
Right. They just hunter fisher, and away they went.
Yeah, like kind of like the people associated with kind of 1600s Native Americans, sort of. That was a very common way.
Yeah, you followed the game for the most part.
You followed the game. And so people are very actually like used to this, like being like, in a way, we've forced ourselves to stay in one location. First for agriculture, because that's where the crops are, but then in a very brief period because that's where the factory was, right? Or in a more modern term, that's where your job is. But I think that it comes a bit more naturally to us to be a little bit more mobile, and so I think that's a great thing. There's going to be an adjustment. So that's the travel part. But then on the kind of like the economy part, which I think is maybe even more profound, which is that, so what you had today is that you have had a period where the kind of productivity or wealth creation is quite concentrated in technology, right? And I just saw the other day, I was just Googling, so I saw NVIDIA was like one of the like now biggest, I think it was the biggest company in the world.
I think so.
Yeah, it was like, and so I was like, oh, NVIDIA, and I was like, I wonder where that's from. And then it's like, oh, it's from Palo Alto as well. Like, it's like 7 miles from like so that's not an accident, right? It's because a lot of the companies started in particular there, like in the Bay Area, that worked with technology, had these global markets, and become so huge. But previously, it was only people in the Bay Area who could apply to those jobs. But what's happening now with remote work is that even though the kind of job creation can be concentrated, you can, like, SafetyWing, our company is a San Francisco-based company, but we have, employees from all over the US and 60 other countries. So the point is that one, it kind of broadcasts that job creation to the whole world, in a way. The opportunity gets, even though the breakthroughs are concentrated. So that's a great thing. Another thing is that it allows for the possibility, right? Because in the past, you have something like this, and then everyone has to move there. Like, imagine that's how Detroit was built, right? So it's like you have the car boom, and everyone has to move to Detroit. Well, what if you don't want to live in Detroit?
Right. A lot of people don't want to live in Detroit.
Right, exactly. Well, especially now, but I'm sure back then as well, right? I mean, it's like they moved because of the job.
Right. They had to. If they wanted to work, they had to move.
Exactly. So now you don't have that. It's not a package deal anymore. You can, in theory, live even a mountain life. Like our CRO, Phoebe, she lives literally a mountain life in Montana. And having a super successful technology career, right? So that's what's possible today, and I think that's again, it's like such an opportunity because it allows you to make the kind of, like, what life do you want, a separate question from succeeding in your career.
Right. Well, and of course, it's a huge benefit to companies, unless you're building a physical product where people have to be in one place. If they're just needing brains, it is such a benefit for them to be able to go worldwide now, right? And so they're getting expertise from places they never thought. There are benefits from a cost perspective, to be able to hire outside, your area where, you might be able to have lower salaries for folks, but you are able to really get the people you need and not have to have them move. The only difficulty is time, right? Because of the time differences. We were laughing before the program. You are in Europe right now, and so it's mid-afternoon. And that's okay until it's mid-afternoon for me, and then it's the middle of the night for you. So people have to adapt to that. But you get used to it. I've interviewed people on this podcast, and I try to really, be as flexible as possible. But I've interviewed them when it's 4:30 in the morning for them. I couldn't do that. There's not enough coffee for me to be able to do that. But as they told me, they're very used to that because they work with so many people in the United States. But yeah, once you adapt to that, it's really, the sky is the limit.
Yeah. This is a fascinating part that I haven't thought of before, but you're right. The time zone thing, because I often approach it as like one of the challenges, and here's how to overcome it in a way, and just to TLDR, here's how to overcome it. Essentially, the way we do it is like you do 8 to 8, you have office hours. So you put all internal meetings in office hours.
Right.
And 8 to 11 a.m. PST. Which is actually
because you're a San Francisco-based company, so that makes sense.
Yeah. No, not for that reason. It's actually the time slot that works for the most.
Okay. So that gets everybody. So it's not 2:00 in the morning for somebody.
No, it's nighttime in the Pacific. So it is kind of works. I mean, it still is like late for East Asia, but it's not nighttime for anybody. And then we say all internal meetings, place them in this block.
Okay.
It still is more inconvenient to be East Asia for sure. But it is doable. It's doable.
Right. So,
sorry. Can I just add one more thing?
Oh, yes.
I just want to reflect on that other point, because you had a great point, which I haven't thought of, which is that the time zone changes the world back. And I think I haven't really processed that, but that's totally going on, which is that everyone in the different across the world is adapting to this way of working, because it's not just, oh, am I in a, like SafetyWing is an extreme example, like fully remote, people working across the world kind of thing, but everyone is adapting to markets and people and communication being on the internet, therefore global. And so I'm guessing that this sort of like light pressure to like work your like of sort of like one world time zone kind of thing, like
yeah, like you said, the 8 to 11, that's kind of going to catch most people.
Yeah. And 8 to 11, to be fair, you could say, if you really wanted to, right, it's probably like 6, even better. So if you, because you're just punishing the San Franciscans. But yeah, 6 to 9, or 6 to 8, that's probably also like a really good spot. But yeah, so it's like if you can work at least 7 to 10, that works in for a lot of people in the world. And if you're in East Asia, hold on, let me
you just get used to having to work in the evenings.
Yeah, I just wanted to check what 6 p.m. East Asia is.
Yeah, I can never do the time zones right in my head. And then the other thing, obviously, that people take into account is, what is their client's time zone, and are they going to adapt to that? I'm in Atlanta, so I'm in the Eastern time zone. And it was funny because for a while I had some clients out in California, and they would expect me to respond at 7 p.m. because that was 4:30 p.m. for them. And, and I don't like to work evenings, now they were paying me. So, you kind of, but I told them, I said, I'll make you a deal. I won't respond to you at 7:30 p.m. and I won't expect you to respond at 6:30 a.m. And so you're right. We kind of got this middle zone where that was how we worked. We see people who have to adapt to this because they're night workers, they're shift workers, all of those things. You just get used to it and you do what you need to do. So what time is it? If it's 6 p.m.
it's 9, it's surprisingly late. So here we're talking like the easternmost, Japan, or actually China, same here, I see, which is 9 p.m.
Okay.
So you're 6 a.m. in Japan. That's easy peasy in Europe. Like it's like, what is that, like 11, 12, like it's not 2 p.m. Like it's very, that's easy. But yeah, then you get to China and it's already late, actually. It's 6 a.m. But it's doable, right? I suppose. Barely.
Well, you get used to it. The tricky thing is when it's a different day. When it's Monday for me and Tuesday for them, I'm like, oh, that just hurts my head.
Yeah. No, that's too much. No, so I'm a bit fascinated by this, and I'm really curious how this is going to develop. I do think that broadly what is happening is that the internet is like a city, that it has its own labor market, and sort of evolving its own norms and rules, and interacting with the kind of old world and curious ways, like in this time zone thing. And it's sort of just happening. Like it's not nobody's project. SafetyWing is our project, but mostly it's not anybody's project. It's just like this time zone thing is just happening because, well, with the internet, people are interacting, and that is producing the necessity to have some norms around it, or to be adapted well to the new environment. But yeah, I really love this.
I love it. So, as we've mentioned, you have employees in more than 60 countries. Yeah. What are some of the other challenges, besides time, of running a remote business?
I am the challenges of running a remote business. So we do,
or the benefits, right?
Yeah,
we've talked about some of those.
Yeah. The benefits. So the primary benefit is to sort of hire anyone in the world, which anyone can tell, but unless they've tried to start a company like in a small town, I don't think they can appreciate just what that means. But if you start a company in a small town, there's not a lot of people you can hire.
Right.
There's like
There's just not a lot,
you've seen them all, and most of them already have jobs. And like,
and many of them might not be qualified to do what you need.
right. Or maybe it's not like
They don't want to do what you do.
don't want to do it. They don't like you. I don't know. Like, yeah. So there's always that. If you're in a bigger city, it's a bit of a lesser problem, but still there. There's just the people, whoever's in that town, that's who's there. That's you can hire. Okay, so when you hire on the internet, you hire people from anywhere in the world. The potential labor force is huge. So that
Billions,
just
literally.
billions, literally, yeah. So it's like the difference from a town of I did this math the other day, like 1,000 people up to New York City, like one of the biggest close-knit labor markets, is as big from the difference from New York City to the internet. That tells you how big of a
Wow.
city.
So that really puts
enormous.
it in perspective.
It's enormous. New York City is like a little town with 1,000 people. And so what that means is the best person on the internet is like way better. The amount of niche knowledge you can find is way more niche.
Right.
And so that's the biggest benefit, that you can build this like very unique companies. In SafetyWing's case, we've been able to find an incredible group of people who are a lot of people who join are always surprised at this. Because we hire for this sort of authenticity, wholesomeness, but also independent thinking and competence. So you come in and it's like everyone is amazed at this kind of little cross section, right? So there's not a lot of people, turns out, you meet in the world who is like excellent at their craft, like world class at their craft. I mean, we have like Silicon Valley salary level, so but they're also like incredibly authentic and wholesome and present,
and they want to do a great job.
Yeah, and they're motivated by this idea, like create a country on the internet, which is a fringe endeavor. And so you kind of can find these, like, you can find your group, your people in a much more narrow way. And that's what we've been able to do. And that's one of the great benefits of having a remote company is that way that you're different. Like, there's enough of those people on the internet that you can make a little team.
Well, you found 150 of them.
Right. Like, so that's one of the great benefits. One of the challenges, I would say, time zone. It's not, while I say, we have the solution and we do, and it's not like we're like struggling. It's not an active problem. It's not like something I tried to solve last week. Something I tried to solve 7 years ago and now I'm happy with it. But it is noticeable, right? You still notice who you're in the time zone with. If someone I'm working with closely is a few months in East Asia, I notice that.
Right. Because you have to adapt and they have to adapt.
Yeah, exactly. So, and sometimes it's plus, sometimes it's minus. Right now I'm in Europe. I love having my long mornings free. You do writing, thinking, planning, just doing things before the kind of onslaught of meetings, emails begins. So it can be like a blessing in that way, but it also just produces a lot of micro challenges. Yeah, that's probably the top one. Yeah.
So let's talk more about SafetyWing. How did you come up with the name?
Yeah. The name we came up with, so we knew we wanted to make a global social safety net. And
but that's kind of boring.
That's kind of boring. And then we thought, safety net. Like, I also didn't like the association, like net feels like something you get captured in.
Right.
but that's not what we're going for here. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're not trying to capture people in our net.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
Mm-hmm.
so this little twist got on. Like we're trying to like provide people with the kind of means to be free
Mm-hmm.
ultimately. And so that's instead of a safety net, it's a safety wing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh, and uh, and out of that, by the way, spawned
Mm-hmm.
all these artwork that we've become completely
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with. But yeah, it is just a nice metaphor
Mm-hmm.
for what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
ultimately a project to make people more free.
Mm-hmm.
Free in what way? Free like a bird in some
Mm-hmm.
ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally. And I don't know if the metaphor of safety wing ever is strange. Like, why would you have a reserve wing? I don't know. Like, you break your wing, here's an extra
I don't
wing.
know, but you could be a wingman, right?
The wingman, yeah. Um, but yeah. Anyway, that's
Mhm.
how it came about,
Right.
and I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, and you mentioned the artwork, and I encourage folks just to go look at the website, which is safetywing.com, because it's a very interesting artwork. And birds are, of course, incorporated into it. And what I really like is that each team member has kind of a bird persona. And I saw on the website that yours is a falcon. So tell us
Yeah.
just a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is one of those things. It's just playful, but then it
Mm-hmm,
became a full part of the company. So in
mm-hmm,
the first 3 months of the company, we wanted to start make this global social safety net. We didn't know how. None of us came
mm-hmm,
from insurance or banking,
mm-hmm,
and so we spent the first 3 months essentially doing artwork while we
mm-hmm,
were trying to figure out what to do. So because we had this designer on the team
mm-hmm.
who fortunately later left us to become a monk,
Oh,
but
he really
he
went nomad.
yeah. So, but he yeah, we were just sitting and drawing,
Mm-hmm,
making this kind of
mm-hmm,
artwork. That was essentially where these bird
mm-hmm,
characters appeared. And we did it collaboratively, and
mm-hmm,
we had this idea that it would be kind of like bring back this sort of we love it's like some of these ideas from Disney essentially that we
mm-hmm,
we applied to. And then it was a bit later. So we started first drawing the birds. And then it was a bit later that someone, just for fun, it's
mm-hmm,
actually our CFO to made this initiative to draw everyone as bird characters. But this
mm-hmm,
was when we were just like a few people. Um, and this immediately took off. People started to use their avatar
mm-hmm.
everywhere. And now it's like a whole thing. Like when you join, you're asked like which bird you want to be,
Right.
and you put on as that bird. And people say like
Mm-hmm,
the moment I really felt like I was part of the team was when I
mm-hmm.
received my
I had
bird.
my avatar.
Yeah,
Well, and it's so cute because when you go on your website to the team page, you
yeah,
have your headshots. But then when you put your cursor over it, it changes to their avatar. And I think that's just so cute. I love that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It does, and that's we just had this Independence Day ceremony last week,
Mm-hmm,
and which is part of our kind of quarterly town hall, and
mm-hmm,
and then they have these announcements, right, where it's
mm-hmm,
like here's the new people who got their birds, right,
mm-hmm.
and they say words
Ah,
about what
I
the
love it.
thing.
Very
It's
cool.
just such a cool
Mm-hmm,
thing and cute things. So we do a lot of these things. They're just for fun, but then they
mm-hmm,
became these traditions, and now I think it's very
mm-hmm,
meaningful, and it does really
mm-hmm,
signify because one thing we realized is that even though we were doing a lot of like art and for fun
mm-hmm,
things, and we still
mm-hmm,
do in the company, when we look back, it makes sense.
mm-hmm,
Maybe we're just like making it make sense,
mm-hmm,
but it does make sense in a way. And with the way that this makes sense with these bird characters is, well, one is right that also not only
mm-hmm,
are we making this thing, the nomad,
mm-hmm,
the global social safety net that allows people to
mm-hmm,
be nomads, but they're also working in SafetyWing, so
mm-hmm,
they also have remote
mm-hmm,
jobs, right? Um, So in a way, they're taking on this themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, they're becoming like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think one very safety wingy version, right? Like, why
Mm-hmm.
don't they just become birds? Well, like, why is it them as
Mm-hmm.
birds? Because
Mm-hmm.
we have a
Mm-hmm.
full-time illustrator drawing these.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It
Well,
is because it's like them. They're still themselves.
mm-hmm.
So it's like it's that uniqueness and authenticity that we
Mm-hmm.
put so much weight to. But then it has this like flair. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you as a bird. It's
Mm-hmm.
not you a bird instead of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's you as a bird. And I think it's sweet and fun. And a lot of some people think it's strange, and I'm completely okay with that.
Well, but to me, it also helps bring everybody together. Like you said, you announce when somebody gets a new bird and they're very proud of it. That's part of the corporate culture, which I think is one of the difficult challenges when someone works remotely. They feel very isolated. Yes, they chose that, but they also want to be part of the team. And so if it's something as simple as giving them a bird avatar that really makes them feel like part of the team, why not do it? I think it's great. But yeah, and yours says, your bird is a falcon. The others chose it for you because you can see far.
Right.
You are that visionary. And so I love that. But yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, it's a way to bring people together.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is. And SafetyWing has a very strong, cohesive,
Mm-hmm.
alive culture in
Mm-hmm.
many ways. And
Mm-hmm.
we've never had that problem
Mm-hmm.
with disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, I think it's like you said, it's because there are having a shared culture that
Mm-hmm.
is makes you feel part of it, not just something you're getting something. It's not transactional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, that's part of not feeling alone in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just having people around you. It's kind of like, as everyone knows, you can be around a lot of people and
Mm-hmm.
still be lonely.
Right.
You're like a bit alone in your
Mm-hmm.
worldview
Mm-hmm.
or goals.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that we've certainly been able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we also should add we have team gatherings around the world. But yeah, this and a shared culture and a meaningful
Mm-hmm.
mission. Um, it's one of the great
Mm-hmm.
things. And I really hope companies can do much more of
Mm-hmm.
this kind, modern
Mm-hmm.
company corporations. I have such disdain in a way for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have pity for them in a way. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is really hard to not be kind of swallowed up
Mm-hmm.
by kind of
Mm-hmm.
corporate mediocrity and
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
sort of all these
You're kind of the
pressures.
drone that goes in, right? You
Yeah,
go in, you do
there's a
your
lot of
job, you're done. Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of pressure to become that drone and
Mm-hmm.
for the companies to be drone
Mm-hmm.
makers. So, but I don't think it's the only
Mm-hmm.
way, right? You could become this sort of strange,
Mm-hmm.
unique, lovely
Mm-hmm.
thing
Mm-hmm.
that people um, that people
Mm-hmm.
get meaning
Mm-hmm.
from and belonging from in a deep way, in
Mm-hmm.
a fun, deep way, not
Mm-hmm.
in a pretend fun,
Mm-hmm.
not in a pretend deep,
Mm-hmm.
but in an actual fun, deep
Right.
way. And yes, it's not easy, but I do think it's
Mm-hmm.
possible, and
Mm-hmm.
I hope many others do
Mm-hmm.
so as well in the future
Right.
because I love working in
Mm-hmm.
SafetyWing, partly because of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's exactly what you said. It takes a lot of work. I think one of the biggest complaints that people said during COVID, when everybody all of a sudden, worked from home, was they lost those connections. The standing around the coffee maker and saying, "Hey, Sondre, what'd you do over the weekend? What do you think about X? All of those various things." And so companies really have to try very hard, to do that. I was talking with one company who they have, their weekly meeting and they try to not meeting people to death. I mean, because that was one of the first things was, oh, we're just going to be online all the time. Well, no, you can't work that way either. But they said that the first 10 minutes, and you are required to be there with your camera on, so class participation time. But those first 10 minutes were the catch up time not business. It was, hey, my kid just won this softball tournament, or my wife just got this great new opportunity, or whatever. So they had that time to kind of do that little emotional bonding, as opposed to just trying to pick out what's going on from somebody with what's behind them on their Zoom camera, or their Slack camera, or whatever it is. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges, is making sure that you have that sense of teamwork and that sense of community.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. I'm mindful that we are
almost at the top of the hour. This has been such a fun discussion. We should do it again, in say a year or so, to see how things have changed and adapted. I think that would be great fun. But tell us how people find you and what are the services that you provide right now.
Yeah, so you can find us if you go to safetywing.com. If you're a digital nomad, meaning you plan to live abroad or long or a bit, that's a great product, Nomad Insurance, sort of travel medical made for that use case. And if you have a team, remote team, you can also find their health insurance for remote teams. That works if you have employees or contractors anywhere in the world. There's also Nomad Health. If you're like long-term living abroad, you can get this sort of full high-quality health insurance that works abroad in any country, and just as well as any local one. Even better, I would say. And so that's what we currently offer. More coming very soon. And if you're looking for a job, we're hiring, and that's what I got. We have a cool Instagram. Check it out.
Oh, I love it. Very cool. Well, oh my gosh, Sondre, like I said, we have to have you on again, because this is something that is definitely going to continue evolving. And so it will be so much fun to chat about, in the last year, what are the changes that have come about, and some things like that. So we will have you on again. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to encourage, if you're listening to this and you have not tried out to make use of the benefits of working on the internet, but maybe you have, or you're exploring that, I would definitely encourage you to take the plunge. Everyone I've seen who when they did that they really cashed in on having a remote job. It was when they try different ways of living. And that doesn't have to be like living like a backpacker, right? It can be just living in a particular place, or trying a few different places to see where you want to live. It could even be moving closer to family, or, like I said, mountains. But make use of that freedom to do a little bit of exploration. It's well worth it. And everyone I see, like, that's where they found a tremendous value. So if you haven't done it yet, now's the time.
Oh my gosh, I love it. This has been such a fun discussion. I'm Deb Creer. I've been speaking with Sondre Rasch of SafetyWing. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.